Welcome back to another episode of Guided Nature Walks with me, your host Greg. Today we're back out in the woods and we're going to be looking for butterflies, everyone's favourite. So right here I've got two large white butterflies and actually you can see there's butterflies all around me. And I chose this path and this glade because there's this nice open sunny areas which butterflies will flock to at the very start of the day when they're trying to warm their bodies up. So I hear you ask, what are butterflies doing all day long? Well, good question. Like us, when they wake up in the morning, they're a little bit sluggish. Since when they wake up, they need to bask in the sun straight away to warm themselves up so that they can start flying around. Their body temperature needs to be about 30 degrees before they'll start flying around. So typically they'll wake up, find a nice sunny spot and start basking in the sun until they're warm enough. And then they'll fly around, try and find some plants that they can feed from, so they get some nectar. And then next thing that'll be on their mind, a bit like humans, is mating. So they want to find an attractive mate with which to reproduce with. And so they're feeding and mating throughout the middle of the day, and then they get a bit sluggish in the afternoon. And as it starts to cool down, they'll go find a plant that they can sleep on overnight, or they can rest on overnight. You want to see a bit more of Lily? She is actually a star. She doesn't know she's a star yet. But whenever we come out on these walks, it's not like one of our normal walks where we're just going off and walking around. We have to stop and film things and look at things, and I think she gets a bit bored. So I reward her for being very patient. Sit down. Sit. Good girl. Yeah, she's been very patient so far. So should we keep walking, Lily? Should we go? Let's see what butterflies we can find. So I set my camera up next to these flowers here, and you can see some sort of small orangey butterflies in the corner there, and a few more whizzing by there as well. And here I came along and I found a big group of large white butterflies on these plants here. So I'm not going to lie to you, I find it very difficult to identify butterflies, and that's because they don't often sit still for very long. They're flying about. So the best time, like I said, to come is in the morning. In the morning, the butterflies are a bit more sedentary, a little bit lazier. They've got that lethargy. They're like, oh, I just rolled out of bed and I don't know what I'm doing. And so that is the best time to identify them. And the way that I do it is I take a photo. So if you can get a decent photo, then you can slowly use a guide like one of these to determine what species it is. So guides like these are amazing. So this is the Field Studies Guide for Butterflies of Britain and Ireland, and it's got 60 species on it. These are sort of the most common ones that you're going to see, and straight away there's some key differentiators to sort of narrow down what you're looking at. All of these on here are as true as they can be to size. So obviously there's some natural variation in populations, but these are pretty much true to size. So if you see a tiny little butterfly, you know, for example, it's probably not a brimstone butterfly or a purple emperor. Purple emperor is actually very, very rare. So I highly recommend getting one of these guides, coming down in the mornings and photographing what you see. So photograph what you see, and then if you can't tell, if you think you found it on your guide or you're not quite sure, you can always run it through a identification app. So the one that I like to use, well, there's a couple. I like to use Picture Insect, which is sort of an offshoot of Picture This, which is a plant identification app. And I like to use Seek if I want to be a little bit more sure about my identification. I'll use Seek. So butterflies are highly coloured on the top of their wings, and this is to recognise and attract a mate. But when these wings fold up, the outer surface is mottled and camouflaged so that if they choose to, they can blend into the environment. So here we have a side-on view of a brimstone butterfly, and you can see that camouflage in action right there. When it stays still, it's incredibly hard to see. These butterflies at the moment, you can see they're all feeding on these lovely betony wildflowers here. And that's because they actually eat nectar. They are pollinators, and so they'll be going from flower to flower. And they have a very long tongue that they stick into the flower to drink the sweet nectar that's inside it. And here you can see exactly what I'm talking about. This is a brimstone butterfly feeding on the betony flower. Butterflies are insects, and they come under the order of Lepidoptera, which means scaled wings, because they have a membrane-like wing with scales on it, which produce these vivid, bright colours that we all love to see. And on this red admiral, you can kind of see the glimmer of the scales up close. Butterflies, like many other insects, including bumblebees, can see in ultraviolet light, as well as the visible spectrum. So they can see wavelengths of light that we can't see, which might mean that if a butterfly looks fairly dull or boring or sort of dark coloured under ultraviolet wavelengths of light, it might seem very much more vivid and coloured. And here we have an example of these UV colorations with a Constantine swallowtail. Butterflies lay eggs. Butterflies have different reproduction strategies. So in the case of the Heath fritillary butterfly, which is a very common one in Blean Woods, but nationally very rare, they will lay one brood of eggs each year. And so they'll be laying their eggs right about now, early July, late June. They lay their eggs on the common cowwheat, which is a plant that is abundant in Blean Woods. And then the larvae start feeding on the common cowwheat. The larvae will feed up until they're about 5 to 7 millimeters in length, so really, really tiny. At which point it'll be the autumn, and then they'll need to hibernate. So they hibernate in leaf litter or in moss at the base of trees. And throughout the whole winter, they'll stay fairly still and they won't be doing a whole lot until April or May, until the weather warms up. The larvae will continue feeding until they have molted 5 times. But a butterfly, before it's butterfly, is a caterpillar, and the caterpillar, every time it grows, needs to molt its sort of outer layer of skin. The 5th time it does this, it forms a chrysalis around itself. An amazing, amazing feat of, I don't know, biology or engineering, whatever you want to call it. The butterfly, the caterpillar basically rearranges its whole body. The whole body forms sort of like a liquid. It's all rearranged, and then after a few weeks, out pops the Heath fritillary butterfly. So for the Heath fritillary, they have one brood of eggs each year, but different butterflies have different strategies. Some butterflies, like the Heath fritillary, will mate, they'll lay their eggs, and then shortly after they'll die. But some butterflies will actually overwinter as a butterfly, and they can live for, you know, almost a year. So yes, some butterflies only live for a few weeks, but different ones might live for up to a year, depending on their reproduction strategy. There's another interesting fact that many people in the UK won't know about butterflies, and that is that they can actually migrate. So some butterflies that come to the UK have migrated several hundred or 1,000 miles to get here. So the monarch butterfly is a very iconic species in America, under threat. There have been instances of monarch butterflies from America making it all the way across the Atlantic to the UK. And now we have a few Lily interludes, where she looks off into the distance and scares the shit out of me. And to finish, we have a large white butterfly. I hope you've enjoyed this YouTube series. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and go check out my guided tour, link in the description. Thanks very much for watching.